Welcome to Turin, to the Stadio delle Alpi, where the only two sides with 100% records in the Italian First Division are paired together in undoubtedly Italy's match of the day. Juventus against Milan. Well, Juventus were surprised to find that Stefan Reuter pulled out of the Germany team, which went on to beat England at Wembley last Wednesday. But Reuter has recovered, and he takes his place alongside his fellow West German Jurgen Kohler. But Giovanni Trapattoni has made his first change of the season. Roberto Gallia, wearing number 8, replaces Paolo Di Canio in midfield. From the Milan point of view, there's mixed news. Paolo Maldini is available for the first time in the league this season after suspension, ironically for a pre-season sending off against Juventus. But they must manage today without Marco van Basten, who was injured after scoring the winner last Sunday against Cagliari. So in at number 9 comes Aldo Serena for his first start for Milan since switching camps from Inter. The new coach, Fabio Capello, following on from Arrigo Sacchi. That's a hard act to follow. It's a match that may well need the experienced touch of Pietro Delia, the referee. Well, when Juventus play Milan, it's always a special occasion, but who could have envisaged when this fixture came out of the computer for only the 3rd week of the season that the two sides would arrive here as the only two clubs in Italy's First Division having won their opening 2 matches. Juventus have beaten Fiorentina here and winning away last Sunday against Foggia with a goal from Schillaci. Milan also 2 1-0 successes away to Ascoli and at home to Cagliari. Van Basten involved very much in both the goals that Milan have scored. And how will they construct their attacking play without him today? That's one of the intriguing factors of what is surely going to be a most absorbing game. In 3 days' time, the big clubs of Europe meet in European competition, and some not so big as well, but neither of these two Italian giants will be involved. Milan banned, of course, after their shoddy behaviour in Marseille. And Juventus, as I'm sure you all realise now, failing to qualify, finishing only 7th last season. A terrible lapse from their point of view. But with Trapattoni back, they hope that the likes of Baggio will be inspired domestically this season. De Agostini. Here's Marocchi. Stefan Reuter wearing number 4. And Gallia to the right of him. It really will be fascinating to see the philosophies of the two teams here, and certainly Juventus going for it early on. De Agostini, the ball did stay in play as it was driven deep to the far post by Schillaci. And the corner taken quickly, and my word, Rossi had to be on his toes then. The goalkeeper, who was preferred to Pazzagli over the latter stages of last season, Sebastiano Rossi, previously with Cesena. Costa Curta. Milan finished 2nd last season when their defence was the best in the division, but really they did find it hard to score goals with any great regularity. Here's Ivani, who'll work up and down the left-hand side, of course. Well, Trapattoni's reshaped the Juventus setup. And that's cut out well. Costa Curta preventing Baggio getting in behind him. Pullet. There was some speculation here that Pullet would start the match in midfield, but really he's the second striker up with Serena. They try to combine in this attack. Albertini, who's been getting rave reviews in the Italian press for his two performances so far, a former Milan junior, recalled to the club. Here's Donadoni. If he'd known, he could have maybe pulled the ball down for himself then, rather than hook it towards Serena in the centre. But neither side sitting back. And that's the most encouraging sign in this mighty confrontation. Baggio. And the flag is up. De Agostini keeps the ball in play, but the offside has been given. And the home supporters bellow their disapproval. Under Sacchi, of course, it was a predominant feature of the way Milan defended, with zonal marking and a willingness to try and compress the play by moving out in a unified way. But this must have been very close indeed. Offside the call against Luigi De Agostini. Costacurta. Now Donadoni. Tassotti giving him width on the right. Donadoni trying to utilise the undoubted strength in the air of Aldo Serena, who had 2 years with Juventus, and even before that, back in the early 80s, had 1 season with his present club. Milan were then in the second division. For wherever he's gone, Serena, and he's had more moves than most, he's been good value. But he's not quite a Van Basten, but then who is? Julio Cesar was guided down to Schillaci. And Baggio, who had the header in the first place, keeps the ball in play, and Casaraghi! A goal for Juventus. With 12 minutes gone, and there was high-quality combination there. A touch of good fortune as well, in that Schillaci's shot was deflected by Baresi. Baggio had knocked the ball down to Schillaci in the first place. There's the touch. Rossi wrong-footed, did well to stop it. Unlucky that it didn't roll behind. Baggio kept on running, and Casiraghi had held his position at the far post and got his reward. It's Casiraghi's 50th game in the Italian First Division today, and he has marked it by striking here against Milan. And a goal really to set the mood for Juventus against opposition from the top drawer. Albertini's shot. Well, when these two clubs met pre-season for the Berlusconi Trophy, a match that was played in Milan, Juventus won it 2-1. Casiraghi got both goals that evening. And he's a thorn in the Milan side yet again here. Carrera swept on by Gallia, and Schillaci coming deep to be involved again. And he's tripped by Baresi. That's got to be a booking. And Schillaci very cutely is getting into positions where he can turn and use his speed. Remember, he was deeper than Baggio in the move that led to the goal, and all that Baresi could do, he felt, was to trip Schillaci, although there was cover in the shape of Costacurta. Referee Delia absolutely right to produce the yellow card. Baresi accepts it all as the fortunes of war. Here's Baggio. Well, undoubtedly he will want to do better in his second season in Turin. Although he scored 14 times last season, Juventus always seem to be up against it. They started the season well enough, 9 league games unbeaten, but fell away in the closing stages drastically. But Baggio, and it's Baresi again. All eyes on the referee. Once more, Juventus built up cleverly and got a player able to turn and take on the defender, and they've got the talent to really embarrass even opponents of Baresi's calibre. He's not going to be sent off, to Milan's huge relief, but he hasn't got any future margin for error in this match. Baggio takes the free kick. Pullit's back to help out for Milan. This is Luigi De Agostini, and now there's an offside against Schillaci. Well, Trapattoni will be pleased with what he's seen from his team so far. Albertini, taken on by Baresi. Rijkaard gets out of his way. And that's Evani. Well, Milan, if they'd come here with any thoughts of caution and containment, the early goal they conceded obviously has changed that, and Franco Baresi, a real leader, as Milan certainly need here. Evani on his strong side, but couldn't keep the volley down. Julio Cesar, who was in the Brazil party, but went to Wales and were beaten last Wednesday. Baresi got to it, didn't deal with it decisively. Here's Baggio, and still he goes on. The shot in the end was rather scuffed by Schillaci, but once Baggio got into the penalty area, you could see the fear in the eyes of the Milan defenders, terrified of conceding a penalty. In the end, they were saved by Schillaci mishitting. Tassotti. That won't reach Serena, not deep enough for him. Cola. And Schillaci able to turn and run and now pass. Milan haven't really come up with the answer to that. Gallia switching the point of the attack. Casiraghi just waits for help, and it comes from Baggio. Oh, brilliant play from him, and Costa Curta. It's a corner. Costa Curta had to move out then, as his teammates were rather melting away in the face of the heat of Baggio. Gallia going to the near post. Rossi claims it well, as Cola caught him and apologised for the challenge. The goalkeeper wasn't interested. Well, Rossi, who played 9 league games at the end of last season, 7 clean sheets, but not one here today. Milan did come here last May and demolished Juventus 3-0. It's a very different, more resolute Juventus side they're facing here. But here's Donadoni, who's picked a way through, and Milan very nearly getting level before half-time. That was much more like it from their point of view. Evani, Donadoni had given the ball to him, and then he came again from a little roll pass by Serena. And Tacconi, well, he nearly forced an own goal, beating the ball back towards Julio Cesar. Juventus claiming that Hullet was pushing. The game goes on with a throw. Albertini. Baresi got there, as Juventus seem to be setting themselves for a counter-charge. Well, it's been 35 minutes of the calibre that you would expect in the circumstances here. And profitable, particularly for Juventus. They lead by Casiraghi's goal. Here's Serena, though, for Milan. Pull it. De Agostini trying to keep Donadoni from delivering the cross. He couldn't do that. Serena gets it down. Hullet was looking to feed off the angled header. The ball back to Tacconi off one of his own players. The pitch here reasonable. There have been complaints by the Italian players about poor standard surfaces this season, led by Roberto Mancini, who's been calling for a strike because the pitches have been poor. Serena, and here's Hullet, who's hit it well, fumbled by Tacconi, and just improvised really as Serena moved in. Feeling for a second, I'm sure, that he was going to equalise for Milan as it bounced off Tacconi from Hullet's shot. Didn't seem directed to trouble the goalkeeper. It certainly had plenty of power. Well, maybe Tacconi's view was barred by Julio Cesar, and in fact the ball did change direction off the number 6. After that, Tacconi showed great presence of mind. Meanwhile, it's a Juventus free kick. And De Agostini gets a yellow card for not taking it quickly enough. Pietro Delier, suspicious of De Agostini's motives. De Agostini would presumably argue that he felt Milan weren't back the required distance. Well, they'll take it quickly enough now, you can be sure of that. Only as far as Baresi. Donadoni has kept it in. Hullet, who was involved playing for Holland against Poland in midweek, along with Rijkaard, who made his return after his so-called retirement. Good news for the Dutch fans, that. Well, Juventus haven't quite capitalised on their inventive play. They're still in front. Reuter, well, you could see what was in his mind. He failed to execute the pass properly. Donadoni. Fabio Capello will be composing, I'm sure, his half-time team talk. Superb player in his day. First of all with Juventus and then with Milan. Albertini has done very well, and so too has Tacconi, with all the promise of Demetrio Albertini wrapped up in that moment there. And look at that for the tackle as well. They are referring to him here as the new Ancelotti, and he can do most things required of a midfield player. Only just turned 20. But for Tacconi's agility then, he would have brought Milan level Gullit got the ball to him, but he needed to juggle it past Julio Cesar to shoot with the left foot. It was well placed too, and even after that he was tearing into the tackle and earning the free kick that Milan might yet put to good use. Taken by Donadoni, and Gullit got to it. But so too did Stefano Tacconi, the goalkeeper, the captain. Reuter. And conscious of the clock, Julio Cesar goes back to the goalkeeper. Not totally appreciated by all his supporters, but it was the safe and professional thing to do. And there still may be time for Juventus to build from Tacconi's clearance. Casiraghi, haven't seen too much of him apart from his goal. Marocchi. Here's Cola. And Juventus not really settling for the security of taking the lead into half-time. They want to add to it. And here's Cola. Marocchi. And the depth to the defending provided most capably by Baresi. They weren't looking for the offside trap then. Rijkaard. And the crowd now do want the half-time whistle, or at least the majority of them, and they've got it. Well, we're halfway through this titanic clash on a day when something has got to give. And Juventus played stylishly for much of the first half. They had the benefit of the goal created by Schillaci and Baggio for Pierluigi Casiraghi, the 100th goal, incidentally, that Juventus have scored in home games against Milan in the league down the years. And it's given Milan food for thought during the half-time interval. At half-time in Turin, Juventus 1, Milan 0. Milan to start the second half, and they've got a substitute on, involved at the restart, Giovanni Cornacchini, who's a 26-year-old striker, signed for £750,000 from Piacenza, from the lower divisions in Italy. It's hard to separate truth from rumour in the Italian media, but there has been some views voiced that Berlusconi, the president, has a strong say in team affairs, and with a new coach, a greater say than he had with Arrigo Sacchi. So there might be some comment in the forthcoming days about the change, which has seen Donadoni go off, which I must say is a surprise. And now there's a problem here for Schillaci, who for the second time this season is going to get a yellow card for trying to charge down a free kick illegally, moving too quickly. Albertini checked in his run-up, and Schillaci was committed and then cautioned. So what will Milan come up with here? It's Albertini again. Costa Curta. Gallia covering. Oh, Tacconi slipped. And he was caught by Cornacchini, largely because of that. Well, Tacconi's handling wasn't without question in the first half. hung on to the ball well enough this time, but it's his footwork that's being called into question now. Gallia. This is Marocchi. Without Van Basten, and given that Milan did find goal-getting particularly difficult even during their successful time last season, a second goal for Juventus now, and you really would expect them to go on to get 2 points. Marocchi. Here's De Agostini. Inside Hullet. And that must be a corner off Costa Curta. De Agostini, who's always impressive going forward on the left-hand side. Baggio to deliver the corner. Rossi started to come, decided to leave it to Serena. And this is the substitute, Cornacchini. Not really quite sure what he was trying to do then, giving possession straight back to Juventus. Hullet, who seems to have been withdrawn into more of a midfield role with the departure of Donadoni. He goes outside Rijkaard. Now that's aimed towards Serena, and Tacconi just did enough to knock the ball away off the eyebrows of Aldo Serena. Maldini angry with the verdict of the referee that he'd impeded Schillaci in that high-speed chase on the far side. Milan have been using one of their new signings, Gambaro, to cover for Maldini. Reuter now comes off for Juventus. Maybe still feeling the injury that kept him out of the midweek international. And he's replaced by Gianluca Lupi. Lupi going straight into Reuter's position on the right. Good work from Schillaci. Casiraghi claiming that the ball had gone behind then. But the game goes on. It was an excellent throw from Rossi to Hullet, who's in full cry here. And, well, there would have been some complaints from Juventus had that gone in, because seconds earlier, Rossi seemed to rescue the ball, possibly from behind the line. But play on, said the referee, and Milan certainly did that through Hullet. A cracking drive. Lupi looking for Schillaci. Baresi was there first. Rijkaard. Milan certainly getting more of the ball in midfield. And you do feel that Juventus consciously are thinking about holding on to what they've got rather than trying to add to their lead. It's given the second half a very different shape from the first, when Juventus really were deserving of fulsome praise for the initiative they showed in attack. Baggio and Schillaci, and to a lesser extent Casiraghi, although he was the scorer, giving Milan a very worrying time. That's Hullet! And in comes Cornacchini. Well, it was a tremendous stop by Tacconi. At the instant that Hullet climbed and made such sweet contact, you thought equaliser. And a lovely gesture of mutual respect there between the two players. But Tacconi thrust out an arm and somehow protected the Juventus lead. We're going to get changes here for both sides. It's Fuser for Evani for Milan. And Juventus are going to bring on Angelo Alessio. The tall, rangy Foggia was on loan to Fiorentina last season. And it is Schillaci who's coming off. The crowd rather perplexed at that. But it is Trapattoni's way. He's got the record to back up his philosophy. He does believe he can create teams to get in front and then defend well enough to stay in front. Alessio, who's a midfield player, stroke winger really. He's certainly not a thrustful player through the centre like Schillaci. Foggia takes the corner, and Rijkaard, and then Maldini got to it for Milan. Popped back by Costa Curta. Maldini right in there again. Baggio. This is more like it from Juventus. And Baggio, feeling that his heel had been clipped, but the referee was well up to adjudicate on the incident. Here's Hullet against Marocchi. Steered away by Gallia. On that occasion, Albertini just a little too boisterous in his attempt to win the ball. But Pietro Delia, not for the first time, and we go back even to the first half in this respect, aware that Juventus will want to use up time if they can. And he's going to add time on, I'm sure. Julio Cesar. Too long for Casiraghi, who's really been left as a solitary figure in the second half. Up front for Juventus, particularly since Schillaci's gone off. Hullet. Here's Tassotti. Hullet wants it back and gets it. And gets the better of Marocchi. And Serena heads it in, but it's no goal. And Milan feel aggrieved, and I must say, I have some sympathy with them. Now look at this, that seemed shoulder to shoulder, and then it was a very belated fall by Marocchi. Hullet kept his eye on the ball, crossed it, but no goal. Carlo Ancelotti is leading the cries from the dugout, rather than the coach Capello. Albertini gets it forward to Rijkaard. Milan have been getting this far so often. Foggia back for Baresi. And how they're missing Marco van Basten, who went back to Holland with the national side. Foggia has the shot. Just to finish off on Van Basten, he had some treatment from the Dutch medical team, which is very highly regarded. And there was a suspicion that Van Basten would be fit from his thigh strain to play today. But that's the type of injury, if you aggravate it, it can linger for several weeks. So Milan not prepared to take the risk. Trapattoni's team haven't been taking too many risks either in the second half. Baresi with the free kick. Milan with far greater share of possession. Baresi. Cornacchini goes to the left and clips it in towards Serena, and Baresi, still Baresi, who looked a little like a fish out of water then, so close to the opposing goal. This is Foggia, and it breaks down for Milan. And Alessio held up by Albertini, who's covered every blade of grass. Albertini first played for Milan 2 or 3 years ago as a 17-year-old and has been loaned out to Padova to further his education. But he's come back here, really fitting the bill in Milan's midfield. Now the referee becomes an extra opponent for Gallia. Well, his positional play has been very good, but on that occasion he just couldn't get out of the way. And Juventus settling for what they've got. Settling here for what's looking more and more like 3 wins out of 3. Rijkaard. This is Maldini. Rijkaard gets it almost into the path of one of the 2 strikers. They were both in there, Cornacchini and Serena. Tassotti hits it hard, but off line for Milan. Well, the team captained by Tacconi have certainly forfeited the initiative in the second half, but they haven't forfeited their lead, and that will be all that matters if it stays at 1-0. And time is ticking away. It's stoppage time at the end of the second half now. Franco Baresi has to hit it long and quickly. Serena launched himself forward. In came Cornacchini. And he went in with studs showing. And the referee has ruled against him. Well, it's been a game that's told you a lot about the style of the Italian First Division. Some superb football in the first half from Juventus, which brought them the lead. Disciplined defending from them in the second half. And Milan have been able to move forward from midfield almost at will, but they've been kept at arm's length. This is Fuser. And back it has to go again. Tassotti drives it in this time. Serena gets ahead to it. Maldini. This is Albertini. Oh, a goal! A deflection, an own goal. Carrera. Well, an astonishing end. And Milan will feel that patience has paid off. Did he have to touch it, Carrera? Well, he'll wish now that he hadn't. Maybe so, because Cornacchini was coming in into the middle. But Tacconi could do nothing. 1-1. And the Milan supporters celebrate the escape from defeat for their team, and Casiraghi wearily kicks off. His expression summing it up for the home side and their supporters. On my watch, we were some 75 seconds into stoppage time. I think the referee quite entitled to add it on. And the game's still not over. But the Milan followers are taunting their opposite numbers. Juventus, who were beginning to count their chickens, really. A third victory was only seconds away. But now it looks as though it's going to be 5 points apiece for the two teams, and their records will remain identical. Well, it's the result that matters, and you do get the feeling that Juventus adopted the wrong approach in the second half. Milan had all the play they wanted in the middle of the pitch and came forward, but I think without Van Basten to confront them, Juventus felt that they would be able to hold on to the goal scored back in 12 minutes by Kaziragi, and 75 seconds into stoppage time, an own goal, cruel for Carrera, but mighty relief for Milan. Juventus won, Milan won. Our roundup starts with Sampdoria and their long trip south to Bari. Treacherous conditions in heavy rain, but used by Gianluca Vialli to his advantage. Pietro Vierkovod's shot striking both posts and Vialli aquaplaning in to score. It was an astonishing piece of improvisation. And Bari's plight worsened when Gianpaolo, their Brazilian forward, a key player for them, was carried off with a broken leg after a collision with Marco Lana. Even so, Kuki nearly conjured up an equaliser. And though Vialli might have made more of this opportunity, Bari fought back commendably in the second half. Calcaterra hit his shot too hard. Frank Farina didn't connect well enough. But Sampdoria still ahead, and if Vialli had tucked away Mancini's unselfish pass, they undoubtedly would have won. But David Platt, who'd been complaining of fatigue after playing for England in midweek, boosted his stature at Bari with a 76th minute equaliser from close range. And though Beato had to make one more save from Vialli, Bari hung on for a draw, Sampdoria letting 1 point slip away. Inter against Verona, a match that will be talked about for years. Inter awarded 4 penalties by referee Petzella. The first, on the harsh side perhaps, Piubelli on Bianchi, but goalkeeper Gregori saved splendidly from Lothar Matthäus. Last week, he stopped the Gianluca Vialli penalty. More Gregori gallantry here from Desideri. Then a rare moment of Verona menace, Radu Choyu racing through the middle. But now, penalty number 2. Tomasi tripping Nicola Berti. Not much doubt about that. Andy Bremer stepped up this time. Again, Gregori guessed the right way, only for Desideri to pounce on the rebound. 1-0 to Inter. Into the second half, and Jürgen Klinsmann anxious to show his strength and skill after being dropped by Germany in midweek. Klinsmann, a central character in the third penalty award, caught by a combination of Pin and Rossi. It was Massimo Ciocci this time, but an awful attempt. Verona's defence still in desperate straits, handballed by Piubelli, and incredibly, it's penalty number 4, and the 4th different taker. Stefano Desideri does make that one count just. Happily for Inter, it was Desideri's day, his first goal since his arrival from Roma. Next to Naples, Napoli against Parma, another extremely entertaining affair, with a sodden surface adding to the fun. Take a look at this. Napoli defender Giancarlo Corradini with what seemed a simple back pass. But goalkeeper Galli somehow stranded. Once more, Gianfranco Zola came to Napoli's rescue. His free kick sailed straight past friend and foe, 1-1 after 20 minutes. Zola starting this move, in which Alamao and Massimo Crippa play prominent parts, and Zola timing his run into the penalty area. There's no pining for Maradona here. Zola now to Alamao, and a superb goal to send Napoli into the lead. Careca at the near post, beating his Brazilian World Cup colleague Tafarel. It's Corradini's cross this time. More marvellous skill from Careca, and Parma lucky to be only 1 goal adrift. But then from Tafarel's throw, after 5 minutes of the second half, they swept the length of the pitch. Alessandro Melli also involved in sending Sweden's Thomas Brolin through. Brolin, a very single-minded striker.
2-2, Parma then had Quoggi sent off, but fortune still favoured them. Carreca against the post this time. He could have had a hat-trick. Napoli looking good, but Parma, yet again, no pushover. Genoa strong favourites to beat Ascoli and setting the pace right from the first whistle. Lazio, bringing out the best in Laurieri, who made a string of fine saves. On this occasion, Onorati should have given the goalkeeper no chance. At times it looked too easy for Genoa. Ruotolo with too long to make up his mind. Aguilera's free kick now, Laurieri launching himself again. Ascoli showing more aggression here, Pierre Leone's shot, Bierhoff firing back the rebound. But after 61 minutes, Genoa got their break. Scuravi shoved by Benetti. It's a penalty, and Aguilera, 3 goals in 3 games for the Uruguayan. Trollio from Argentina responded to Ascoli's need for more thrust in attack, and then the veteran Bruno Giordano worried Genoa in the closing stages. But it finished Genoa 1, Ascoli 0. Lazio with 3 points out of 4, Atalanta only 1 as they came to the Olympic Stadium. Again, the attackers relishing the heavy rain. Carlo Perone's shot for Atalanta, goalkeeper Fiori bailing out Lazio. Very difficult for defenders, and Atalanta had no answer to Ruben Sosa's splendid solo run. 1-0 to Lazio. But a let-off here, Niccolini against the frame of the goal, and then the same fate from Bourdin's follow-up. But it was a temporary reprieve for Lazio. Claudio Cannicchia glanced in the equaliser 10 minutes into the second half. Two subsequent chances for Lazio, Gabriele Pin powering forward here, finding Ferron, the Atalanta goalkeeper, in fine fettle. And so too did Thomas Doll, who played so well for Germany against England 4 days earlier. If it's a draw, it must be Lazio. 2 in 3 games now to add to their 19 last season. Roma had won their opening away game at Verona, and coming up another success in Cagliari. It might have been different if Fonseca had fired the ball a centimetre lower. But then Cagliari gave away an indirect free kick. Thomas Hessler's seemingly senseless shot deflecting off Herrera to make the goal count. Enzo Francescoli almost made up for that folly. It was a frustrating way to lose, but Roma flew home from Sardinia with both points. Fiorentina are trying to rid themselves of the tag of unpredictability, and it came back to haunt them against Foggia. The warning was there when Rambaudi struck a Fiorentina post. And the lack of a ruthless streak from Fiorentina evident at this Orlando miss. And again, after Batistuta helped the ball on for Facenda to finish well, the defender's second goal in consecutive matches. At this stage, with Batistuta on song, it seemed a question only of Fiorentina's margin of victory. Mazzino's splendid attempt here, typical of their confidence. And then disaster. 2 Foggia goals inside 4 minutes. The first thumped in by the Romanian international Dan Petrescu. The second superbly set up by Signori for another defender, Cody Spoti. A Fiorentina recovery should have been possible when Baiano of Foggia was sent off, a second bookable offence. But the home side spirit shattered now. Signori almost added a third for Foggia. Their first win back in the big time, a second half flop from Fiorentina. Cremonese are still struggling to adjust to life in the first division after their promotion. Torino too strong for them, all the key moments in the second half here. Lentini lining up what should have been the first goal, belting Enzo Scifo's clever pass against the bar. Venturin wasn't so wasteful when again Scifo carved out the chance. And with 5 minutes left, Scifo himself strode through to round off a most stylish individual performance. Cremonese 0, Torino 2. Well, Juventus were just seconds away from retaining their 100% record, but that Carrera own goal put them and Milan on 5 points and allowed Inter to slip past them to the top of the table on goal difference. Goal difference which should have been considerably wider, but for their poor show from the penalty spot against Verona. You'd have bet on Lothar Matthäus, the first of 4 to step forward for Inter. And on Andy Bremer. But goalkeeper Gregori so unlucky when he kicked the ball up for Desideri to score. Massimo Ciocci, such a clinical goal scorer, made a real hash of his penalty attempt. And even Stefano Desideri needed the inside of the post to finally fire in the 4th. As European competition approaches, heaven help Inter if they find themselves in a shootout.